Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Welcome back to the Steph Hayli Show. It's your girl, Haley Nick, here with my lovely co-host, Fem Steph.
Hello.
It's us. Hello, everybody.
It be us.
It be us. If you guys are new to our show, this is a place where we do kind of just like life updates and talk about what's going on with us, but we also talk about everything adulting. That's how I like to describe it. Everything from parenting to life as a streamer to books we're reading to things that we like to vent and complain about regarding being a grown-up. It's really fun.
Oh boy, yeah. Being a grown-up.
And also just stuff that's relevant, which is kind of what today's going to be about, because wow, big news bomb last night that dropped at like basically middle of the night, and it just exploded. It's everywhere right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys, I don't know if you've been keeping up with what's been going on with Activision Blizzard. It's incredibly disappointing to see, and just overall, just so there's so many things we could say about what's going on. Steph, did you read the whole law? Well, first, do you want to catch up on life and then talk about it, or do you want to just talk about it now?
You can just hop in. We can hop in.
Okay. Did you read the lawsuit?
I read like the highlighted segments.
Yeah. In fact, I think actually it's Mighty. I don't know if you're still here. Can you link it in chat?
I'm gonna send you a squad stream, by the way.
Oh, good idea.
Boo, 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 boo.
Invite. I have accepted your invitation.
I have started it.
Thank you so much. Yeah. If you guys haven't been keeping up, there's this huge, thank you, Laura, lawsuit that just came out that from the state of California against Activision Blizzard that basically is accusing Blizzard of everything from sexual harassment to, like, they call it frat boy culture. I didn't know that was like an actual term that you could use in lawsuits, but the highlights from this lawsuit are disgusting.
Yeah.
It's wow. Like it and it's so disappointing too, because I feel like Blizzard is like the place that every person who wants to work in gaming, it's like their dream, right? Like they have this amazing campus, and like all of the major like games that everybody grew up on are Blizzard, and it just in general, the overall culture that we see from the outside looking in has always seemed so inviting. And like you've been to their campus, right?
I have not.
Have you been before?
Mm-mm.
Really?
Mm-mm.
So I've been actually several times. It's just incredible, right? They have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 buildings. Everything, it's just massive, right? They have like buildings dedicated to Overwatch, building dedicated to Diablo, building dedicated to WoW, and everything that you see at BlizzCon, generally speaking, like the big statues that they have are all from Blizzard HQ. They like literally load them up into the truck and bring them to BlizzCon, which is really cool. And it's just, it's one of those experiences where you show up and you just look around and you feel like kind of overwhelmed, because it's truly the most like beautiful campus I've ever seen. And they have all the, I guess, tech benefits that come from Silicon Valley, except in Irvine, right? They have like workout classes they offer, and you can like bring your dog to work, and all these really amazing benefits. So as, again, from the outside of looking in, I could see people being like, oh my God, that would be my dream job to work at Blizzard. And then this happens, and you realize, like, actually not all is as it seems. So this article from Bloomberg, it says, video game giant Activision Blizzard, makers of games including WoW, Diablo, fosters a frat boy culture in which female employees are subjected to constant sexual harassment, unequal pay, and retaliation, according to a lawsuit filed by the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing. A 2-year investigation by the state agency found that the company discriminated against female employees in terms and conditions of employment, including compensation, assignment, promotion, termination. Company leadership consistently failed to take steps to prevent discrimination, harassment, retaliation, the agency said. And like the examples that are given
Are horrific.
Seriously, like which ones did you read?
The cubicle crawl and just like in general, the fact that they're joking about rape and that they have like sexual banter conversations, that, you know, the men peers would get promotions over the female peers, and then they would have the females as their subordinates, and instead of actually doing their job, they would screw around and then have their female counterparts pick up all the slack, and just stuff that you like, you think, oh, we're like past all this stuff, right? We don't do this anymore. It's 2021. And then you read this stuff and you're like, you know what's frustrating for me? And I think the reason this particular, I don't know, is it a scandal? This news beat really affects me is because this was my job. I worked at EA, I worked at Ubisoft, like basically similar company structure as Blizzard, Activision, and as much like shit as EA gets as a company, because whatever, you're mad that they release the same Madden game every year. I actually had a wonderful experience working for them. Yes, there's the bureaucratic like corporate world shit, but that's with any company, right? But I had a female boss who was outstanding. She was such a role model. She cared so much about employees. She really like mentored me. And then her boss was a female. And so, you know, I had a lot of really great women role models within the companies. And there was the one or two encounters with bags. But like, I mean, again, as with any company, you're just going to find, you know, the bad apples here and there. But overall, all of my male coworkers were incredibly respectful, kind, ended up being good friends, right? There was very few stereotypical, you know, what we're reading in this, like Activision lawsuit. So it's just really surprising, especially because like Blizzard was held to such a huge standard, right? Like the gold standard for games, the gold standard for like if you had them on your resume as a developer, you were like set. Exactly. Yeah. So it's really especially disappointing for me to read this.
Yeah. And I'll give a quick trigger warning. I'm going to read some of the stuff that is in this lawsuit. And I'm not going to get to, there's some that's graphic. I'm not going to read any of the graphic stuff, but I will read some of this lawsuit to you guys. So trigger warning, just fair warning. The suit also points to a female Activision employee who took her own life while on a company trip with her male supervisor. The employee had been subjected to intense sexual harassment prior to her death, including having nude photos passed around at a company holiday party, the complaint says. And that's not even the worst of it. I mean, that's pretty bad, but like there's when you get into the nitty-gritty of the details of that incident, there's some really, really terrible stuff in here.
Yeah.
And so in these situations, you're like how have we not heard about this? First of all, how is this not everywhere?
I mean,
like it is now, but it wasn't. It wasn't.
But
for
it wasn't. Not like a lot of the.
I never heard about this incident.
A lot of. Well, here's the thing. I'm sure when it originally happened. I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe the family wanted to keep it like under wraps because they were grieving and they didn't want to make it this big thing. Like there's probably a lot of reasons for it. But what's surprising to me, so when I worked publisher side, so when I worked for the big gaming companies, I worked as a publicist. So my day-to-day interactions were with gaming press. And it is so interesting to me the amount of like press, like outlet writers who are coming out now and saying, I actually have heard many stories that fit in this vein with this company. And it's like shock. It's just shocking to me. Like to your point though, like how did this not come out sooner? How did people
Well, that's what I'm
not
thinking. If there's journalists who are literally saying I can corroborate that this happened, why did no one say anything? Like, I can understand why the women didn't say anything, the subjects of the sexual harassment, but other people who knew and just kept their mouths shut.
because
Holy shit.
it's one thing to see it one at a time, to see like hear a joke off the cuff or whatever. It's another thing to put them all in the same pile and realize how fucking big that pile is. You know what I'm saying?
I just, and you know what I've noticed over the years is that Blizzard actually seems to have a pretty high turnover rate. And I've always wondered why. And in that, what I mean by that is, you know, I've been lucky enough to make a lot of friends at Blizzard over the years, who have, you know, everybody from the Overwatch team to just people from various parts of the company. And it's been really interesting watching them only be there for what feels like a short amount of time, and then they, for whatever reason, they leave and they don't give a reason. And a lot of times they don't say what their next step is because maybe they don't have one, which tells me they're leaving without a job lined up, and it makes you wonder why, right? And so now that this is happening, and mind you, it's not all women who are leaving that I've witnessed. It's a variety of people. But I've always wondered, I'm like, man, Blizzard, it seems like such a great place to work. Why are so many people leaving? Like, there was a period where Rick really wanted to break into gaming as far as, like, being on the back end of things and being on the corporate side and working in video games. And so he, excuse me, he was, I sound really healthy right now. He was really trying to break into the industry. And so he, like, had been trying to reach into Blizzard and a bunch of other companies, and like for him, he was like, oh my god, I mean, like, he grew up on StarCraft. He's like, how cool would it be to work at Blizzard? And so we were reading this last night, and he was like, wow, I actually can't believe it. After, like, I had such a high opinion of this company, and to see that this is what they've been doing, like, I can't believe it. And so for me, I'm like, I can believe it. Because I think we've all, even if it hasn't been necessarily at EA or, you know, wherever it was that we've been in the past, like, we've still been in situations where we've experienced that kind of sexism and discrimination and sexual harassment. Like, I think every woman to some degree at some point in their life has experienced sexual harassment.
100%.
And so I don't know. I mean, like, so then it got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, what's going to be the retaliation, in the sense that, like, how does Blizzard handle this? Because for me, Rick and I disagreed on this. He was like, I honestly don't think it's going to make a difference. Like, when it comes down to it, people are still going to play Hearthstone. They're still going to play WoW. They're too big of a company for it to make a difference. And I'm like, I don't buy that, right? Like, now, if you, especially as streamers, like, streamers are going to get destroyed if they're playing Blizzard games right now, I feel like.
I don't agree.
All they're going to get is people coming in chat being like, wow, really? You're going to support this company after what they just announced?
I don't necessarily agree, because by stopping playing their games, you are hurting the women who are developing them, right?
It's true.
So
It's absolutely true.
That's not necessarily the end game, is to, like, blacklist their products. I think
but it is what you're saying. I'm seeing a lot of people doing that on Twitter, like streamers that you and I are friends with, who are saying, boycott Blizzard. I'm not playing Blizzard games until they announce they're going to change something. Like,
well, but I think
some people are doing.
I think that's what will ultimately happen, right? I think under the scrutiny of everyone, of this being so public, I think moving forward, they're going to have to do an immense overhaul internally and do a lot of, like, PR stuff to really change their image, which means that they're going to be so entrenched in company culture and supporting women and diversity and all of this stuff. So I think it's going to necessarily affect their bottom line permanently? No. I think we'll see a temporary shift in people not playing their games as they are crying in outrage and stuff like that. But I think the most important thing that's going to happen is with this being exposed is that it won't be, they'll have to change internally. Like the higher ups are going to, actually start cracking down on this kind of behavior. And I think we'll see a lot more. I mean, hopefully you'll see a lot more recognition within the company. So these are great examples, right? So one of the biggest things that a lot of people noticed when I worked in PR, because again, when I worked for EA and stuff like that, my job involved doing press conferences, and, that includes E3. And so one of the things that people kept noticing year after year after year is that 99% of the presenters on stage at press conferences were male. And this was 8 years ago, maybe more. And then because it was exposed and people were talking about it, nowadays you see like a press conference and you see way more females, you see way more people of color, you see way more just diversity in presenters for video games and like representation in the development of video games. So hopefully you'll see Activision step up and try and like really show their shift in company culture, but I think that's as far as it's gonna go.
See, here's the issue that I have with that, and not even issue so much, is just like what the reason that that's a problem, like from what you're describing as far as like changing it from the top, is that a lot of the people involved in this were from the top. Like this one in particular, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, but another example, a female employee who worked at Blizzard Entertainment was assigned to a lower level, denied equal pay, and passed over for promotion, despite multiple factors that suggested she earned it. Highly rated performance reviews, generated significantly more revenue in her marketing campaigns than her male counterpart, and ran almost twice as many campaigns as her male counterpart. Despite her accomplishments, her male counterpart was invited to have monthly or weekly one-on-one meetings with the vice president. She was not afforded these same opportunities, and unsurprisingly was passed over for promotion in favor of her male counterpart. So like this dude's out here having meetings with vice president.
Yeah, but the point is, now that this is exposed, you're going to see a dip in stock prices, right? Which is directly affecting. I'm
curious to see if that happened today.
Which will directly affect the bonuses of the VPs, directors, and the executive level teams. So if that happens, the thing is, money talks, and if it affects their bottom line, they're gonna have to do something about it. And this is way too huge. This is way too huge for them not to change anything. So
I don't know, dude. The stock's only down 1.5% today. It's not much.
I mean,
I figured after something like that, it would be a huge
blow. I would be curious to keep an eye on it and see if it continues to go down as more of this kind of catches on. It did just happen. I don't know if everyone has seen it yet. So as the news continues to roll out, did you read their response, by the way?
No. Do you have it?
Oh my God. It is. Wow. Okay. Here's their response.
Really?
Yeah. The DFEH includes distorted and, in many cases, false descriptions of Blizzard's past. We have been extremely cooperative with the DFEH throughout their investigation, including providing them with extensive data and ample documentation, but they refused to inform us what issues they perceived. They were required by law to adequately investigate and to have good faith discussions with us to better understand and to resolve any claims or concerns before going to litigation, but they failed to do so. Instead, they rushed to file an inaccurate complaint, as we will demonstrate in court. We are sickened by the reprehensible conduct of the DFEH to drag into the complaint the tragic suicide of an employee whose passing has no bearing whatsoever on this case and with no regard for her grieving family. While we find this behavior to be disgraceful and unprofessional, it is unfortunately an example of how they have conducted themselves throughout the course of their investigation. It is a type of irresponsible behavior from unacceptable state bureaucrats that are driving many of the state's best businesses out of California. The picture the DFEH paints is not the Blizzard workplace of today. Over the past several years and continuing since the initial investigation started, we've made significant changes to address company culture and reflect more diversity within our leadership teams. We've updated our code of conduct to emphasize a strict non-retaliation focus, amplified internal programs and channels for employees to report violations, including the Ask List, which with a confidential integrity hotline, and introduced an employee relations team dedicated to investigating employee concerns. We have strengthened our commitment to diversity, equity, I think it's supposed to be equality, and inclusion, and combined our employee networks at a global level to provide additional support. Employees must also undergo regular anti-harassment training and have done so for many years. Yeah.
Wow.
And the journalist who reported this statement from Activision Blizzard directly said, "Truth is, I've heard several stories about sexism and sexual misconduct at Blizzard over the past few years. Needless to say, we'll be reporting more on this. If you worked for or have worked for Blizzard in the past and would like to share your story confidentially, please reach out." So it's just like, yeah. I just find it very ballsy for a company to claim that what happened within the company, like the whole passing around nude photos at a company retreat, had nothing, they literally say has no bearing whatsoever. I feel like that's a very bold claim to make.
I'm shocked. Like, that is the most insensitive, disgusting response that I could possibly imagine. Like, there was no accountability, nothing whatsoever. There was basically them saying, shut up, we're handling it, and how dare you? That's basically what they said. When did they announce that? Was that last night? That they put out that release?
Yeah, 17 hours ago.
And then they're like, but look at all the other stuff we're doing to stop it. Like, but clearly it's not fucking working.
And then so this is part of the official lawsuit. Line 19, DFEH attempted to resolve this matter without litigation. Prior to filing this civil action, the DFEH required all parties to participate in mandatory dispute resolution in the department's internal dispute resolution division free of charge to the parties. In an effort to resolve this dispute without litigation, specifically, DFEH invited defendants to participate in a mediation session on July 1st, 2nd, and 15th, but the parties were unable to resolve the administrative complaints. In the case of failure to eliminate an unlawful practice through conference, conciliation, mediation, or persuasion, or in advance thereof, circumstances warrant the DFEH to bring a civil action in the name of the department and state federal courts. So that's a direct, what is it? Like a counter, what is it? What I'm looking for?
I know. It's contradiction.
Yes, of what Activision Blizzard said in their statement. So it's just very.
And then we get into like cancel culture, right? Because it's so easy to, like, at this point, if you fuck up, the only way that you really get any kind of pass, so to speak, is if you own it. Like, that's it. If you come out and you're like, hey, this was fucked up and it shouldn't have happened and it won't happen again, and we're gonna fix it, and you're right, like actually owning it and being authentic about it. But when you sit there and you lie and lie and say this didn't happen, this isn't true, that's BS, I don't know what you're talking about.
Like the verbiage is insane to me. Has no bearing whatsoever. You don't know that. How are you qualified to make that statement?
I don't know.
Like it's not like it was like her peers speaking out and saying, you know, this is what happened. We had many conversations with her. It's just like, this is a corporate company saying, like, making that bold of a Wowie zowie.
Yeah. And just looking through it, it's like, it's frustrating because the fact that people have a hard time believing it. Like, what is hard to believe about this? Is it easy for us to believe because we're women and we've experienced this before? Like, when we look at gaming as a culture, right? Because again, Rick and I talked about this last night, and he said it too. He was like, that was his first reaction. He's like, how could a culture like this exist? And he's like, it doesn't make sense. You literally have your dream job working at like the company that you've always wanted to work at, and that's what you
do. That's not
like,
how entitlement works. That's not how entitlement works. They work there because they think they're amazing and awesome, and they think they deserve it, right? But they don't shell out the same amount of like respect for their female counterparts. I mean,
let's look at gaming culture as a whole, because I think this is relevant. When we go in and it's gotten somewhat better, I think, but generally speaking, over the last 10 years, right? You join a lobby, right? You're solo queuing. You join a lobby for whatever, Apex, COD, League of Legends, you name it. And as a woman, I would say 4 out of 5 times, I would just absolutely shit on. The second I open my mouth. Literally the second I open my mouth. Oh, are you a girl? Oh, yeah? Yeah? You want to get this? Like, just immediate sexual harassment. To the point where a lot of times, if I solo queued in any game, I would literally just not even bother turning my mic on.
I feel like that's
the second I open my mouth.
That's the standard. My stream knows it.
But that's the thing. And so when we as women are used to this kind of treatment in gaming culture as a whole, why are we shocked when that's the way that employees in gaming also treat women? Like, hello? That seems like a pretty direct correlation, don't you think?
Yeah, but I think the point is that the people who quote unquote don't believe it are the same people who are doing these things. They just don't.
So?
Yeah.
Because Rick couldn't believe it. And Rick would never treat anyone like that.
Like, he didn't believe that this actually happened, or
he believes it, but he was shocked that it happened. He believes it. It's not like he's denying it, but he was like, his first reaction was, oh my God, how can this actually exist? Like, that it blew his mind because it's so far-fetched to him, because he would never treat anybody like that.
Again, like I said, I had a great experience when I worked at EA, but that doesn't mean, like, thinking back on it, it doesn't, like, shit still happened. There was a dude who spread a rumor about me that he like had sex with me and told his boss and all this stuff, and I was like, what the fuck? Yeah. I mean,
wow.
But again, in my mind, I rationalize it. Oh, it was one guy. There's always going to be an asshole. Blah, blah, blah. But it's someone brought that shit into the workplace and used it as a way to keep me off of a certain team.
Really?
So
that's why?
I mean, it was like, yeah, that this person was working on a title, and I denied him. Like, I was like, no. And so he didn't want to work with me on a day-to-day. And so that was what he told his boss, and said there was a conflict of interest or some shit like that. And his boss told me years later, because I rose up in the ranks. So his boss was up here to me all of a sudden. And then he was like, yeah, did you know, like 3 years ago, like, he was saying weird stuff like this. And I was like, what the yeah.
Wow. So, because I was going to say, if you knew in the time that it happened, would you have handled it differently?
Oh, I would have filleted him. Yeah. Filleted him. But yeah. So
I cannot, I mean, I would say I can't believe that, but I can. Like, that's the perfect example of these things that happen.
But I think, and this is to my point earlier, right? I feel like the reason this feels so gross is not because we're shocked that it happens. It's, I think, seeing all of the stories in one pile and realizing how big that pile is, right? I have one story. Maybe my other female counterpart has 2 stories, and someone else has another story, and all of a sudden we have 4 stories, and blah, blah, blah. And it's not just my one isolated incident that was gross and disgusting, is you see this purveyance of culture where stuff like that happen. Like, again, how did he not get reprimanded? How did his boss not fire him or send him to HR? Or why didn't we have a meeting where we sat down and he had to like apologize to me? Like, why didn't his boss do something about it? But it didn't happen.
And that's part of the problem. Like, Tyler makes a good point, because one of the biggest problems is the amount of people that see these things and rationalize it and don't do anything. Everyone wants to say, oh, I'm an ally, but they aren't even willing to make the effort to address the microaggressions, much less harassment. And it's true. Like, I think even us, we tend to justify a lot of the ways that we're treated without even intentionally doing so. Like, what you just said is a perfect example. Like, what you experienced, that was sexual harassment. And in your head, you were like, well, this is just a guy who was bitter, who didn't want me to be a part of his team because he was mad that he was doing it in retaliation, right?
Right.
And so when enough people have those same stories and we look at it from the big picture, we're like, oh. Yeah, exactly. Right? And so for instance, do you remember when all that drama came out with Chris D'Elia? When so long story short, I won't get too into it, but there was a lot of drama with comedian Chris D'Elia because it was exposed that he was attempting to basically have sex with underage girls. And I personally had my own experience with that, where I was freshly 18. Like, I just turned 18. And I went to a comedy show to see Dane Cook, and Chris D'Elia happened to be like a surprise guest. I'd never even heard of him. But he was hilarious. I was in tears laughing. And so I tweeted at the end of the show, I was like, hey, great show, like, at Dane Cook, at Chris D'Elia, whatever. And this guy slides in my DMs. And he's like, thanks for coming, cutie. And like starts hitting on me. And he sends me his email. And he's like, we should kiss and stuff. That's what he said. And in my head, I was like, and so I told him, like, I'm pretty sure I'm too young for you, dude. Like, not even thinking like the legality standpoint of it. Technically, yes, 18, I was legal, barely. But more just the fact that I'm 18, I'm young. He's like in his late 20s. This is clearly not, this is weird. And he was like, oh, well, as long as you're legal, it's fine. Like, cause I told him, I was like, I'm 18. And that was his response. So anyway, I just never responded. I stopped emailing him. He emailed me again and he was like, guess not. But in my head, I justified the whole thing thinking like, whatever, he's like some famous guy. He probably just is mad that he didn't, get it in that night. And I moved on, like never thought about it again. Until this whole thing breaks. And now there's like stories of girls who are like 15 and 16 who are coming forward and explaining their stories with this guy. And I'm like, oh, so mine wasn't an isolated incident. Like, this guy's actually really weird. And so it kind of, when you see your story corroborated, no matter what it is, it tends to give that validation that, okay, what you're experiencing actually is not okay. And it's really unacceptable. And I think as a culture, we need to move past, or a society, we need to move past this like frat boy culture where we think it's acceptable for like boys will be boys and for girls to just sit there and take it because that's what boys do, and to like take the high road and not make a scene because we're the mature ones. Like, bro, there's nothing mature about sitting there and letting a guy sexually harass you. There's just not. And, I was in a sorority in college. I experienced firsthand, like, actual frat boy culture and the way that a lot of boys in fraternities would behave. And, like, it stems from somewhere, but that doesn't make it acceptable at any point, let alone as we get all the way up into the fucking workplace. So back to what we were talking about originally, I think the only way that Blizzard gets over this is by cleaning house. And I don't know where they would begin in that because it's going to be a long process. But based on their statement, I don't know that I see them actually attempting that. It doesn't sound like they want any accountability.
Like I said, money talks. So if this actually starts affecting their bottom line, then you will see a big hullabaloo about it.
That's sad that it takes
sure
money for people to do the right thing.
And then if you don't see that happening, I think what we'll see is you just won't see females apply to their, I think, but this is the whole thing where it's like, it's a societal thing, and it's really hard to change because they're gonna do diversity hires and stuff like that, right? They're gonna say, look, well, we're gonna need a female on this team or whatever. And so if you are an up-and-coming artist and you want to work for a development studio on a video game, and Activision Blizzard is offering you a job, even though you are aware that there is a terrible company culture and an image they're trying to repair, but you don't have anything else on your resume and this could really give you a great paycheck, like, are you at fault for taking the job? It just becomes one of those things where this is why it's cyclical. This is why it continues to happen, right?
Yeah, because people decide that the benefits outweigh the costs of working there. And that's like, how depressing is it that women have to make the choice between a toxic workplace culture and a job that they really like want for their career? Those shouldn't be your options. It shouldn't be one or the other, right? Like, oh, if I want to move up, I have to be in a toxic work environment and be sexually harassed. That's disgusting. And it's just, and then it sucks too, because then we bring it into like the price that streamers pay. Because for me, I'm one of those people that grew up on Blizzard games. I grew up playing Diablo. That was like my game with my dad. And like Diablo 2 Remastered comes out in September, and it is the one game that I have been so legitimately excited for this year, to the point where like my son is due. So those of you tuning in don't know, I'm pregnant. My son is due in the beginning of September. And so I'm like, I will literally, and then Blizzard announces that Remastered is coming out like 12 days after my due date. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I will power through postpartum so that I can No Life Remastered on my stream. Like, that was my dedication to it. And so then it ends up being another fallback on people who want to play the games. It's like, well, shoot, I want to play this game so bad, and now I can't. Like, I'm not allowed to, for a variety of reasons. But it kind of like what I said earlier. People right now, if you are playing a Blizzard game, are you just going to get destroyed by chat? Is everyone going to come in and be like, why are you supporting this company? I mean, it's really unfortunate. And I feel like that goes in multiple circumstances.
So the other thing I'm wondering is, does that extend to Activision proper? Does that extend Call of Duty franchise? Does that extend?
I think so, absolutely.
Okay, so but are people making that connection? Are people just simply not playing WoW for a little bit, or are they asking Activision to also take responsibility? You know what I mean? I'm looking at
what's shitty. Like, tell me your thoughts on this. Do you think that male streamers will be as held accountable as female streamers will be in not playing Blizzard games for the time being? Think about the major COD streamers, for example, right? Compared to like anyone who goes and also streams COD, like a woman. Do you think that someone like Nick Merckx, people are going to go in his chat and be like, what the fuck, Nick? Why are you still playing this game when after all this shit came out about Activision, how they've been treating women? Like, what the fuck? Versus a woman. So for instance, like P90 Princess, right? She's really big into COD. Is she going to get it way worse than somebody else who plays that game? Like, I feel like the guys who stream the game are not going to be held as accountable for, like, basically just holding Blizzard to a standard, being like, this is not okay. You know, does that make sense?
It does, but I'm still of the opinion that it doesn't matter. I worked in this very specific part of the industry for a long time where boycotting doesn't actually move the needle, sadly to say.
Oh, it won't. But I'm saying I'm not saying.
But I don't see it happen. I don't see people going into P90 Princess's stream and being like, why are you playing Call of Duty right now? I don't see people doing it to her or the bigger guys. I think if anything, they'll be like, well, did you guys know? I will keep an eye out on it.
I don't know.
I just don't think they care enough to stop playing the games that perform well on their streams. Or the games that they love. I mean, you love it. This is cancer culture in a nutshell, right? Do you stop playing the things that you truly love because you find out that the company is shitty? Do you stop watching Harry Potter and playing the new Harry Potter game because you don't agree with J.K. Rowling's stance on?
I still don't know the answer to that.
Exactly. I don't think anyone really knows I don't think there is a correct answer, but it is one of those things where it's like,
No. Well, and I feel like there's two options, right? There's people who are diehard fans of a certain game or franchise, whatever it is, and then there are people who just like the game or like the idea of the game and might be interested in playing it. And so for a lot of these people who are like canceling Blizzard right now, they're people who probably aren't exclusively Hearthstone streamers or exclusively COD streamers or people who are diehards. And then it puts the people who are in the real, true, authentic situation of being a fan, like we're talking about with Harry Potter, for instance. Like, again, if you guys are new here, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. I always have been my whole life. I have tattoos of it. I have, like, half my bookshelf is Harry Potter. It's just part of my brand. Like, my freaking sub badges are Harry Potter. And so when all this J.K. Rowling BS came out, dude, it was devastating. Like, to me as a fan, to see this woman that I admire so much, who created this world that literally changed my life, to find out that she was a TERF is like, it was heartbreaking. And even, what was it, like 2 days ago, I put in our book chat, like something that she said that was just so ugly on Twitter. And I was like, wow, this is just, it's very disgusting to see her personality really shine through. But it brings up, okay, when she started saying all this, everyone and their mom was like, ban Harry Potter, don't read Harry Potter anymore, like, don't play the new game that's coming out from WB Studios. And for me personally, I'm like, am I not allowed to love the thing that's been a huge part of my life for the last, how old am I, 28? Like 20 years?
Yeah.
Because J.K. Rowling has a terrible take? Like, that's, it's hard, right? Because then are you basically saying F you to all the people that she's discriminating against by playing the new Harry Potter game? Like, I don't know what the right answer to that is. I mean, what do you think?
I think, okay, and I don't know if this is a hot take, but I feel like entertainment properties like Harry Potter, for instance, are bigger than just J.K. Rowling now, right? Yes, she was the author who originally penned the books, but she's not writing the books anymore. We're not going out and buying the books that she's publishing now. This is a IP that we fell in love with years ago that is so much bigger than her. And yes, sure, I understand that she might get royalties and whatever, but she's not in a studio working 12 to 19 hours a day making a video game based in a world that we all have known and loved for years, right? It's not, to boycott the game is not going to hurt her in any way, shape, or form. So it's just, I think,
well, the argument is that she still profits from the sales of the game.
Profits, but like,
but she's so rich, she doesn't even notice. Like, the money she will make from the Harry Potter game launching, but again, literally like, be a drop in the bucket that she won't even see. Like, you buying her game, yes, technically there will be a cut of that will end up eventually in her pocket. But right? Again, I think it's separating the artist from the art, right? If you walk down the street and you saw a piece of art hanging up on a wall and you were like, oh my God, this touches my soul. It speaks to me. I love it so much. It's so beautiful, right? And you walk by that same art every day for 5 years because it's hanging in the studio that's right by your house, right? But you find out, you do your research and you find out, whatever, the, person who drew this was a bad guy or a bad woman, right? Just, your personal morals don't align with that person. It's hard for me to justify the art's worth being less and speaking to you less because you found out about the artist. It's, you know what I mean? Like, that's, and I don't, does that make me a bad person? Like, I don't know. Is it unacceptable to separate the art from the artist? Is it supporting? I just don't see it necessarily supporting the artist's agenda to appreciate their art, right? Okay, perfect example.
There is a sleep training specialist that became very, very popular on Instagram and on social media. And she's huge. She has a very, like I said, a very successful sleep training online course that you can buy. And basically, like, all of the mommy bloggers in the world were promoting her product. Then it comes out her political alliance was revealed because she donated money to a campaign under her company's name, which I don't know why she would do that. But so it came out, her political alliance was revealed, right? And the internet went crazy and was like, well, now we're never going to use her products again. We're boycotting it, blah, 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 because our political opinions are not aligned. My political opinion with her does not align, but I used her sleep training course, and let me tell you, it saved my life. My kid sleeps 11 to 12 hours a night. So am I supposed to not use a successful product that's going to benefit my child's sleep because I don't have the same political opinion as her? Like, it's just, where is the line drawn? Like, where, like, me not buying that, is it, how much is that going to affect her? Is it going to change her political opinion? Is it going to stop her from doing what she's doing? Like, it's just one of those things where it's like, really, I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah, and I think the argument there can be made that there are several sleeping courses that you could say, okay, well, I'll use this one instead. But I remember when this happened and I talked to you and I was like, hey, I don't know if you've heard of her, but like, I would recommend finding someone else after this. And you were like, well, I already bought her course, so I already have it. I was like, all right, well, too late now. But in that circumstance, like, whatever, you already have it. It's not going to be like, don't use it if you've already got it. But, and that's kind of the difference, is like when there's other options out there for people, and it goes back to like the gaming situation where people are diehard WoW fans or diehard Hearthstone or whatever, and then there's people who are cool with whatever. They have the option of choosing not to play that game because there's other games that would interest them, if that makes sense. So I feel like there's,
but is there another massive world MMO wizarding world game that we can dive into? Because there isn't.
Yeah,
so
I know. And so but like, you know what makes me sad is I just pulled up JK Rowling's Twitter, and so I guess she was getting like death threats and things like that, which is never okay. But she was, someone tweeted at her and said, I wish you a very nice pipe bomb in the mailbox. And she quote tweeted it and goes, to be fair, when you can't get a woman sacked, arrested, or dropped by her publisher, and canceling her only made her book sales go up, there's really only one place to go. And I'm like, what a disgustingly ignorant thing to say. Like, oh, you tried to cancel me and guess what? My book sales went up because of it. Like, I was so truly disgusted. I was so turned off by the fact that she had the audacity to say that, because she just has no issue whatsoever continuing not just to spew her bad takes, but then to brag about it and to be openly offensive to these people who she's targeting. And it makes you wonder, like, wow, how did a story that I love so much come from the brain of somebody who is just so on the wrong side of history?
Isn't she currently penning a book that has TERF agenda in it?
So I don't know if she's still writing it. So she has a pen name called Robert Galbraith. That's where she posts a lot of her adult novels, like mystery crime novels. And I believe one of the storylines in one of her novels had a trans character who was killed. And the story is like resolving the mystery of the murder.
That's not.
And so she said she was doing a bunch of research into like the subject as a whole for her book, and that was why she said she was so educated on it.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought she was writing a story where a male serial killer was disguising himself as a female.
Oh, that could be.
And
I
then
could be remembering it wrong.
Quote unquote infiltrating women's spaces and murdering them and getting away with it.
Oh my god, that's so much worse.
Yeah.
That's so much worse. That's so much worse. That sounds right.
Someone
you
in,
might be right.
Someone in chat goes, why is it so hard to believe that someone that you disagree with in some context can't do something you agree with in another context? It's not about believing that it's possible. It's about whether or not you feel comfortable continuing to support that person, specifically monetarily, while they promote agendas that you philosophically cannot agree with.
Yeah. And to be fair for J.K. Rowling, I think it was even more shocking because she has been so outspoken and truly been what feels like on the right side of history on almost every other subject until this. Like, she's been very vocal about Black Lives Matter. She's been very, like, you see the she's very supportive of gay rights, and she's just always talking about it, right? You know, there was this whole trend that was going before the play came out, Cursed Child, and there was a whole movement online for Black Hermione. That was everybody was like, okay, but like Black Hermione. And J.K. Rowling tweeted, she's like, Rowling loves Black Hermione. And sure enough, they ended up casting a Black woman in both. Well, actually, there's several versions of this play now, but I think all of them. I'm pretty sure Hermione is Black in all of the plays. And so it for a lot of people, it was so shocking to be like, yes, okay, we see you're on the right side of history. We see that you have the right takes. Like you're very progressive. You're very liberal. We love to see it. And then she goes and says trans women aren't women. Like, what even? And so that makes it even harder to wrap your brain around it too, because, you know, for me, that this is somebody that I've looked up to the majority of my life. And, you know, I had an instance before the play came out where I was lucky enough to go to London to visit a friend of mine, and she had gotten extra tickets because she has involvement in West End. And I was able to go to the after party of the release of Cursed Child. Like, I was literally able to be in the same room, like feet apart from J.K. Rowling. And I was like waiting for my opportunity to meet her, just so excited. And like that was my level of like diehard, as I went all the way to London to see the play. And so it's even more devastating when that's someone that you hold to that kind of standard. And it's not even just her, but also, again, the art that she created. So, and I'm still thinking about am I allowed to play the MMO when it comes out? I think the answer is yes. And my plan is, if I do end up playing it, I'll at the very least do some kind of charity fundraiser for like the Trevor Project or something, and like make it very clear that, okay, yes, I'm playing this game because I enjoy the art, but my thoughts on this are this. Does that, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know if it's justifying in a way that maybe isn't fair.
But didn't we have this whole thing where a unnamed social media person was calling that out and saying that that's like a cop out and you're a bad person for trying to justify the means? So
yeah,
but
like, and that's the thing, everyone's gonna have a different opinion on it.
So someone in chat says, I think it's cognitive dissonance and the decision is personal for each individual. I personally have a trans friend who's still a huge Harry Potter fan, even despite JKR. And I mean, that's, yeah. Okay. You know what is interesting? So all these topics that we're getting into, right? The Activision Blizzard thing and people being surprised that it happens, that it's a reality, the JKR thing. I think what's going on is, for the first time in like, the reason why we're seeing small changes, big changes, just changes in general in the direction that I hope we continue going in, is because for the first time, people are being like full face confronted with these issues, right? 10, 20 years ago, we didn't have the means. There wasn't social media. There wasn't like the same type of access to information so that people could see these things happening in real time and unfold directly in front of them, and then be faced with the decision, the uncomfortable decision. What do I do? Right. I think the fact that that's happening is wonderful. And I think right now people are just trying to navigate this and I don't know how else to explain it. It's like the perfect way to say it, but it's just people are uncomfortable. And when people are uncomfortable, they don't know how to act, right? And I think this is a learning situation where we need to hear all the parties involved, especially those who are being victimized or who are being marginalized or who are, you know, the ones affected most by these, and to listen to what they have to say and how they're feeling about it, right? It's not,
absolutely.
I don't think it's necessarily fair to like stand up and crusade for something that doesn't directly involve you. I think you need to be an ally in the fact that you listen to those who are affected and follow their lead, right? So again, it is hard. Like I said, I don't have the right answers. I still struggle with it on a daily. Like, I have a moral compass where I see something like JKR's turf agenda and I go, this doesn't feel right. I don't like this. This doesn't feel good to me. I don't support this. I don't believe that life should be led this way. And now it's my job to learn and figure out a way to navigate those feelings, right?
Right. And the tough thing there is that, because I remember going through that same mentality when, like, the main, like, basically after George Floyd was murdered, and there was a huge surge in people participating in the Black Lives Matter movement. And I really did my best to try and figure out, okay, like, I want to learn. I want to educate myself. I want to be better, right? And so the problem that I ended up being faced with was where it's my responsibility to educate myself, but how do I go about doing that? And there were people on the internet who were like, it's not the job of Black people to educate you because you don't know enough about this. Like, it's your job to educate yourself. I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? But then I had, a friend of mine who was a coach at my old gym, and we were talking about it, and I was like, yeah, like, this is kind of like where I'm at with it. I feel like it's my responsibility to do my own research and find all this out. And she was like, if you ever want feedback on anything, do not be afraid to come to me. She was like, I will gladly tell you my perspective on this. And so for me, I was like, okay, it's really great of her to even offer that to me, right? To tell me her thoughts on this. But it does go to show that everybody, just because they're in a certain group, people are still going to have different opinions.
Right.
So, like, for what you just said, you have a friend who said that, yeah, my friend is trans and she still, loves Harry Potter and reads it all the time. And so my initial thought here was, I was going to be like, okay, when the game eventually does come out, which who knows when it is, I will talk to my community. And I do know for a fact I have at least a handful of members in my community who are trans. I will just ask, and I'll be like, hey, how do you feel about this? Because they're the ones who would be watching the content.
Yeah.
And so if my community were to come to me and be like, hey, you playing this actually really offends me, and I won't be comfortable supporting you if you do it, then that's where I would be like, okay, like, your opinion matters to me, and I totally hear where you're coming from. Thank you. But if they come back and they're like, yeah, you know what, I can separate the art from the artist. This is my opinion on it. You do you. I want to support you. I know this is your job, like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think the best approach is exactly what you said, to talk about the people that are directly affected by it, because it's not our responsibility or our place whatsoever to go and have an opinion about something that doesn't directly affect us, if that makes sense. It's almost like when, like, Chrissy Teigen, right? She was under fire for the bullying thing with that girl. And when she made her apology, in my opinion, it was a really great apology, but you go through and you see all these people in her comments are, like, accepting the apology that she gave. It's like, that's not your place. The apology was directly to this one person. It is her job to accept the apology. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But again, so this is the dilemma, right? It then is the onus on the fans and viewers to make the decision of whether or not they will continue to support her. Because here's the thing, it's not like Chrissy Teigen shows up for a desk job and sits in a cubicle, clocks in her hours, and then goes home, and that's how she makes her money. Chrissy Teigen makes her money because people buy products that she endorses or creates herself. She is a brand in and of herself. And I think that is the difference, right? 20 years ago, people who were brands were actors and maybe athletes. And that's about it. You didn't really have, that I can think of, like, just your average Joe who decided to turn on a webcam and then suddenly have 1 million people listening to their opinions and recommendations on things to buy and the things that they sell themselves, right? So this is where it gets complicated because, you no longer interacting with Chrissy Teigen's content, if enough people did it, would affect her in a big way, right? So is the onus on Courtney Stodden to accept the apology, or is the onus if what Chrissy Teigen really did really just like, you can't get it, you just don't support it, but you appreciate everything else? I don't, like, you know what I mean?
I get it, but I think that more comes on to like companies than it does like people who engage, right? Because regardless, Chrissy Teigen will still have people who engage with her content, right? She's big enough that there are going to be people who either don't care or are willing to look past it or whatever. So she may not have as many people, right? But Chrissy Teigen is a very controversial, person in and of herself. People either love her or they hate her, right? And so I think it's more up to the brands to decide if they still want to work with her. Because, like, look at Target, right? Target pulled her line. They pulled Cravings out of their stores, like, days after this broke, before Chrissy ever apologized. And so Target made the decision, we are no longer going to work with Chrissy Teigen. Now, we as humans have a very short attention span, and we tend to forget things very quickly. And so who's to say in a couple years or even less, that she doesn't get a deal with Walmart or Amazon or another big retailer who says, enough time's passed, people don't really care anymore. You know what actually blows my mind is how we can very conveniently give a pass to certain people who did unacceptable things before cancel culture was a thing. My one example that I always think of is Chris Brown. Chris Brown, I don't know how he still has such a successful, booming career after what he did to Rihanna.
I think Rihanna's the reason why. Because she came out and was like, he's not the only one. I did stupid shit too. Blah, blah, blah. And again, to your point, though, right? The only person that Chris Brown should be apologizing to is Rihanna. If Rihanna accepts his apology and supports her, then, that's the epitome of the conflict, right?
But at the same time, a lot of that, you could tell she was very much in a situation where she was domestically abused very clearly, right? With the photos were evidence enough. But like when you are in a domestic violence home where you are subjected to that, it's not as easy as just getting up and leaving, right? And so she was clearly still indoctrinated in the abuse, not just physically but emotionally, right? It was like a couple weeks after he beat the living daylights out of her, and she's on the back of his jet ski in Florida, and people are like, what are you doing? And so I think that I don't
think people were like, what are you doing? I think people were like, oh, so it wasn't that bad.
I don't know how anyone could see those.
I think that's why he didn't get canceled, because people were like, "Oh, she's cool with it. It's cool."
You really think so?
I mean, I don't have to think so. We saw it roll out that way.
If that situation happened right now, it would have a very different outcome.
Absolutely,
very different. And I think people are at this point educated enough in the ways of like therapy and mental health and like emotional abuse and things that were not really talked about even like 10 plus years ago. Because when did that happen? It was like 2009 maybe.
I think that
people would be like, she's clearly in an abusive situation.
I don't think so.
And here's why that matters.
I think
you really don't think it'd be any different.
I think making the assumption that most people understand mental health issues is a huge assumption. I think we surround ourselves, you and I surround ourselves with people,
That's
like-minded people, that it's hard. Sometimes you forget that there is a very large group of people who don't agree.
But would you say that the people who are the loudest, like as far as social media goes and mainstream media,
not necessarily
are educated in those areas?
Did you see what happened with our political system and who got elected as our president and the things he was accused of? So
yeah, but his whole thing was the media hates me, the media hates me, all the media does is talk shit about me, blah 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 blah. And so the media as a whole, I feel, is actually pretty liberal, unless you're watching Fox News.
But that doesn't change the fact that there is a large group of people who are not educated in mental health and who would not agree with us.
But that's why I'm talking about like the people who are the loudest. When I say the loudest, I mean like influencers or people who are like journalists or people who have a platform that they're speaking on. Is that just me living in my bubble that it feels that way?
I think so. Because
really,
if you go, I mean, again, I just bring back 2016. You go on to the posts where people were talking loudly, you know, with like-minded rhetoric, and then you go in the comment section and it didn't change anything.
Well, it's not so much about the comments or the way that the media is received. I'm more talking about the, well.
But that's the point.
Because that matters.
Yes.
Of course. If you can't.
If everyone's shouting loudly, but it doesn't change anything, then there's no point in shouting, right? So it's just, I don't know. Well, okay. So this is actually a wonderful segment to our other topic, is mental health and representation in the media. Segue into Britney Spears.
Yes.
And what happened to her, I don't know, 7 years ago, whatever, is still affecting her life in a really real and intense way to this day, right? Yes. So do we want to get into that topic?
Let's dive into it. Chat, how many of you guys are caught up on what's been happening with Britney Spears? Because it's been a pretty crazy. I'm actually glad that we pushed talking about this back a little bit, because a lot has happened in the last week. And we can give like a little TLDR explanation of what's been going on with her over the last 13 years, but also really the last couple months.
Yeah. Why don't you like give us like a quick timeline?
So you guys, most people, I think, if you are old enough, remember back to 2008 when Britney Spears had her quote unquote mental breakdown, and shaved her head and tried beating open a paparazzi's car window with an umbrella. Because shortly after that, it turned into a huge thing, and her dad filed for a conservatorship over her person. So it actually does not take nearly as much as I thought it would for that to happen. It literally just takes a concerned family member going to the court and saying, hey, this is what's happening, and this is what we want to do and why we want to do it, and for the court to give you the stamp of approval. It's really not hard. And typically conservatorships are, the whole purpose of them is for people who, like, mainly the elderly, right, who are not physically able to take care of themselves anymore. And so, long story short, she goes under this conservatorship, goes off the radar for a while, and then comes back out and is like, seems like she's doing way better, right? She's touring, she's like making new music, she's doing interviews, she seems like she's better. And it goes on like that for many years, to the point, yeah, people with advanced dementia, serious brain injuries, absolutely. It's not just the elderly. Sorry, I didn't mean to generalize, but people who are not actually able to take care of themselves. And so she's like back to work. She's back to being Britney Spears, and like she seems to have rebounded, like gotten her life back, and everybody thinks she's doing great. And 13 years she stays under this conservatorship. And so what that means, if you're unfamiliar, is a conservatorship allows a person to have full control over you, Like there's different kinds of, there's like a conservatorship of your person and there's a conservatorship of your finances. And her father, Jamie Spears, had both. And so he was able to dictate how she spent her money, where she lived, what she did, what she ate, what doctor she saw, when she would go to the doctor, if she could drive in her boyfriend's car, where she was allowed to go, what time she had to wake up, who she could see every day. Like quite literally dictating every aspect of her life.
All the while paying himself
Yes.
$16,000 a month.
So yeah, when you are the head of the conservatorship, you get paid a salary. And so he was getting paid from Britney's pocket $16,000 a month to essentially control her life. So no one knows this, right? The public perception is Britney's doing great. This conservatorship has been so good for her. Thank God she made it through that hard time in her life. We're so glad she's okay, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there develops this almost like people like joked that it was a cult, right? This existence of people who were like, free Britney. She's still under this conservatorship. She doesn't need to be. This is insane. Her dad is psycho, and have gathered all this evidence throughout social media and like her Britney's Instagram posts, and like there's a whole podcast dedicated to Britney's Instagram. I don't know if you knew that. But like these two girls have a podcast where they would go through and dissect Britney Spears' Instagram because they're like, something's not right. So fast forward to this year, the New York Times does a documentary called Framing Britney Spears. Okay. And they go through and they interview various people in Britney's life and talk about her experience under this conservatorship. They do not speak directly to Britney. They do not speak to anybody in her family. They try. They don't get any responses. I think her brother made some kind of comment. But other than that, it's like the woman she grew up with and like, you know, people who toured with her and all these people who are validating that, yeah, what's going on with Britney is actually not okay. And it explodes. It's everywhere. Like suddenly people are interested in Britney Spears and they're interested in what a conservatorship is and how it affects people. And if it's actually the right thing to do to even let it exist. And if people abuse it. And I'll never forget this in the interview. They interviewed Jamie Spears' lawyer, who was not at the time working with Jamie Spears. And they asked her, she specializes in conservatorships, have you ever witnessed somebody who is under a conservatorship successfully remove themselves from it? And she said no. So, I think
but it makes sense,
biggest,
right? Because if someone is
yeah.
in control of your person, as in controlling your doctors, controlling the people you surround yourself with, and because that was Britney's point. She's like, I didn't even know I had the ability to go to court in front of a judge and request a change in my conservatorship. I didn't even know that existed. I didn't even know I had the option. Like, you know what I mean? She was duped into believing that this was the only way, it's the best thing for her. We're going to take care of you. We're going to make sure you're okay. And then she came out with her side of the story straight from her mouth. And it's sad. It is so devastating to hear her own words.
It's heartbreaking. So speaking of that, so she goes to court. She's been in court for years now, trying to like at the very least get her dad out of control of her conservatorship. Mind you, she did not pick her own legal counsel. She was not allowed to. It was court appointed. And so she just recently got a big win by being able to choose her own legal counsel. Like that was a huge win apparently. But there was a recording that was leaked of her in court talking to the judge. She'd prepared a statement. It was like 30 minutes, the statement, to read through it.
Mm-hmm.
And she just laid it all out. And I'd like to read part of it for people who are unfamiliar. So this is her talking about, like, she was talked about how she wasn't going to be touring anymore. She didn't want to tour, and she's like, I'm not doing it, right? She goes, I couldn't take it anymore. I remember telling my assistant, but you know what? I feel weird if I say no. I feel like they're going to come back and be mean to me or punish me or something. 3 days later, after I said no to Vegas, my therapist sat me down in a room and said he had a million phone calls about how I was not cooperating in rehearsals and I haven't been taking my medication. All of this was false. He immediately the next day put me on lithium out of nowhere. He took me off my normal medication I've been on for 5 years. Lithium is a very, very strong and completely different medication compared to what I was used to. You can go mentally impaired if you take too much or you stay on it for longer than 5 months. He put me on that and I felt drunk. I couldn't even take care of myself. I couldn't even have a conversation with my mom or my dad about anything. I told them I was scared, and my doctor had me on six different nurses with this new medication come to my home, stay with me to monitor me on this new medication, which I never wanted to be on to begin with. The 6 different nurses in my homes, they wouldn't let me get in my car to go anywhere for a month. Not only did my dad not do a thing, my dad was all for it. Anything that happened to me had to be approved by my dad, and my dad only. He acted like he didn't know that I was told I had to be tested over the Christmas holidays before they sent me away when my kids went home to Louisiana. He was the one who approved all of it. My whole family did nothing. Over the 2-week holiday, a lady came to my home for 4 hours a day, sat me down, and did a psych test on me. It took forever, but I was told that I had to. After that I got off. Or no, she said I had to then after I got a phone call from my dad saying after I did the psych test with this lady, basically saying I had failed the test. I'm sorry, Brittany, you have to listen to your doctors. They're planning to send you to a small home in Beverly Hills to do a small rehab program that we're going to make up for you. You're going to pay $60,000 a month for this. I cried on the phone for an hour, and he loved every minute of it. The control he had over someone as powerful as me, as he loved the control to hurt his own daughter, 100,000%, he loved it.
Just bonkers, dude.
$60,000 a month.
To send her away to do a quote unquote rehab program. And then she goes on to say no one else in the rehab facility was forced to stay and do this. That's not how rehab works. It has to be, rehab only really works if you have to be there of your own volition, right? So they don't, it's not like a hospital where you're sick and they won't let you go. It's not a prison. Like if you show up and you say, I don't want to be here anymore, you can leave, right? And so because Brittany's under a conservatorship, she doesn't have control over her own person. And if her dad wills it and says, no, she cannot go, then she cannot go. It's wild, dude. She had 24-hour paragraph. She had 24/7-hour security. She had someone, she says, they watched me change every day, naked, morning, noon, and night. My body, I had no privacy door for my room. I gave 8 vials of blood every single week. What?
Yep.
10 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Card, cash, phone, passport, put them in a home where they could like work with the people who live with them. Like it just.
And she says that, she goes, why am I the only one that was forced to stay? Yeah.
I don't know. And so this whole experience, I don't think people really realize, like, oh shit, Brittany's actually, like, she has no control over this. Like, she literally can't do anything about it. Talk to them about the IUD part.
Yeah, so she has been, how long has she been dating this guy? A couple of years now, right? A while.
It's been a while.
And
keep talking, hold on.
So she's been dating this guy for a while, and she has an IUD as a form of birth control, and, you know, she's 39 years old, and she wants to be able to make the decision to take her birth control out and try and conceive with her boyfriend. And because of the rules of the conservatorship, she quite literally does not have control over her own person. So her father can force her to keep the IUD in and prevent her from having children.
Yep. And the craziest part to me is that was like at the tail end of her testimony.
Yeah.
It was literally like, oh, and by the way, I want to have a baby and I can't take my IUD out. They won't let me. Like, as if it was an afterthought, because everything else has been so traumatic for her. And what's crazy is that, like, my chat's right. They're talking about how money is the root of all evil. Like, that's the driving force behind all of this, right? Is money, right? Why would Jamie Spears want to give up his space as her conservator when he's getting paid $16,000 a month to do it? Right? And it's not even just him. It's her whole fucking family.
But just imagine that level of gaslighting for her. Like, okay, imagine this. Her dad's forcing her to do this tour, right? So she's doing it. against her will. She doesn't want to do it, but she's doing it anyways, right? And she goes, this is my career, it's my job. I love what I do at the end of the day. So as I'm doing it, I'm not good. I'm the best. I'm great. I'm great at what I do. So she's handling all her own choreography. She's teaching choreography to her dancers, et cetera, et cetera. And she goes, you know what? There was one particular dance move in the choreography that I was just not into it. I said, no, I don't want to do this dance move. Okay. She didn't say I'm not going to do the tour. She didn't say whatever. She just said this particular part of the dance, I'm going to edit it. I'm going to change it so that I'm more comfortable with what we're doing. Right. Imagine the gaslighting for her handler, because that's what it is, her handler, to then take her out of the room, separate her from everyone else involved in the dance company, put everyone else in a room, and then convince them all that Britney is being difficult. She's not like following instructions, and she is now not being compliant. So I have the grounds and the means to change her medication, to put her on more therapy, to like complete, like, it's just wild. No. That shit, because she's already teaching everyone dance moves and she just didn't want to do this one thing. The audacity, like, that is the most manipulative, controlling, evil shit I've ever heard in my life. Crazy. Yep. That's crazy town. Bonkers.
And it goes, like, I'm trying to imagine being in her shoes and knowing that there's literally no one you can trust except her boyfriend, right? Her boyfriend seems to be the only person who's truly been in her corner throughout this entire situation. Have you been keeping up with anything going on with her sister?
Mm-mm.
Oh, there's tea. There's hot steaming tea regarding her sister.
Wait, can I read this one part? This is really good.
Yes.
I don't owe these people anything, especially me, the one that has roofed and fed tons of people on tour on the road. It's embarrassing and demoralizing what I've been through. And that's the main reason I've never said it openly. And mainly I didn't want to say openly because I honestly didn't think anyone would believe me. To be honest with you, the Paris Hilton story on what they did to her in that school, I didn't believe any of it. I'm sorry. I'm an outsider. And I'll just be honest. I didn't believe it. And maybe I'm wrong. And that's why I didn't want to say any of this to anybody, to the public, because I thought people would make fun of me or laugh at me and say, she's lying. She's got everything. She's Britney Spears.
It's heartbreaking.
It's crazy.
And that's why, like, when the perspective of, oh, you have no right to complain, you have all this, like, bad situations don't pick people based on how much money they have. Bad situations don't pick people based on their circumstances. Bad situations happen to everyone. And just because she's Britney Spears doesn't mean that she deserves to live this kind of life.
It's almost worse. It's almost more scary. It's literally an episode of Black Mirror where you're like, one of the most powerful women, one of the most prolific in mainstream media women is powerless to do anything, who has a $60 million estate and cannot use a single cent of it, that she cannot say no to something like a dance move, or is forced to go to a 24/7 rehab where she has to get naked morning, noon, and night in front of people and be forced to be on lithium. Can you imagine? It's one thing to be like the average Joe and, like, you know, something bad happens to you and no one knows about it and you feel like you're trapped. But now imagine being Britney Spears and everyone knows what's going on and no one does anything to help you.
I mean, you're right. It would literally be like an episode of Black Mirror.
Literally.
When you put it that way, it really puts it into perspective.
Everyone had a window into her glass house and no one decided this isn't right. We should help her.
Yep.
Everyone was just like, oh, you know,
this is normal.
This is how conservatorships work. This is how it works, you know? It's crazy.
And here's the thing is when people are able to make millions and millions of dollars and feed and house and support and employ hundreds of people the way that Britney Spears has, and do several world tours, a Vegas residency, work her ass off. That's not only are conservatorships, that's a whole other subject of what we think of conservatorships as a whole, but that's not even what they were intended for in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay? She's clearly capable of taking care of herself. And this BS, like, skewed perspective that her dad is trying to spew to everybody, I'm worried about my daughter. We just want her to be happy and healthy. We like, and then he went and after she accused him of everything, tried pointing fingers at everybody else who was involved in the conservatorship. It's like she named you, bro. She literally named you. There's no avoiding it. And it's just, she's their dairy cow. Literally drug her up and suck her dry. They just don't care. They see a cash cow. They're like, Britney has been working, if you watch this documentary, Britney's been working her entire life.
Yeah.
She started her career so young. And between Mickey Mouse Clubhouse and all the stuff she was on, she
was 17 when she started working.
No, she was younger than that. When she was starting to make it big and doing shows at malls and stuff, she was like 14, 15.
She goes, ma'am, I've been working since I was 17 years old.
Yeah. So I think as like in a professional capacity, yeah, that was probably when. But I mean, like in the documentary, you see her as a little kid, like going to New York with her mom and like really trying to get her name out there.
Is her mom still in the picture?
I don't think so. So I think her parents are divorced. And I don't think her mom is in the picture either. I don't know what their kind of relationship is. I think she has a better relationship with her mom than her dad.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not good. And then her sister, okay, so back to this, right? So the audio drops from the lawsuit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or not the lawsuit, but the court date. And everyone is just dragging Jamie because they're like, you've done nothing to support your sister. You've been dead silent. And Jamie has her own brand on social media, right? She's got a couple million followers. Actually, I'm going to look it up.
This is Jamie Lynn.
She's got her own situation. And so everyone's dragging her. They're like, why are you not supporting your sister? And so she makes this video where she comes out and she's like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. I will always support my sister, whatever she needs. If she wants to go live in the middle of the jungle all by herself, more power to her. I want what's best for her. But it's like a whole rant. She's like crying on her Instagram stories. And everyone's like, bullshit. They're like, yeah, right. And so Britney, have you seen her Instagram lately?
Britney's? Not like within the last week.
Girlfriend is starting to get comfortable. She's starting to call people out. Like she's making these posts and like not naming names, but she's literally like, F all of you. And so there's this one in particular. It says, so it's like a meme, or not a meme, but like a quote. Never forget who ignored you when you needed them and who helped you before you even had to ask. And this is what her caption says. There's nothing worse than when the people closest to you never showed up for you and post things in regard to your situation, whatever it may be, and speak righteously for support. There's nothing worse than that. How dare the people you love the most say anything at all? Did they even put a hand out to lift me up at the time? How dare you make it public that now you care? Did you put your hand out when I was drowning? Again, no. So if you're reading this and you know who you are and you actually have the nerve to say anything about my situation just to save face for yourself publicly, if you're going to post something, please stop with the righteous approach when you're so far from righteous it's not even funny, with a bunch of middle finger emojis. And have a great day. P.S. If you're reading this today and you can relate, I'm sorry because I know what it's like and I send you my love. If you go through the comments, Steph, everyone's like, Jamie Lynn, Jamie's shaking, Jamie Lynn, like losing their mind, calling out every single comment is Jamie. So then
I love her next one. Take me as I am or kiss my ass, eat shit, and step on Legos.
Okay, so then the one after that, the dancing one, this is where the tea gets real. Okay, that caption she has is actually edited. Okay.
Which one?
Because
the
one of her, most recent video of her dancing in the red top. So I need to find the actual quote. But here, if I type in Jamie Lynn Spears, it's probably still one of the most recent articles. So Jamie makes a post on Instagram and says something like, Jesus, like to support like. Something about like being wholesome and like being respectful or something like that. Oh, here it is. I was like, may the peace of the Lord be with you and your spirit. Okay, that was the quote that Jamie put on the caption of her Instagram post. The video of Britney dancing literally starts, and it's edited now, but it started with, may the Lord wrap your mean ass up in joy today. Like, straight up called her out. So now there's no question who she's talking about. It's definitely her sister.
Yeah.
And then Jamie went back and edited hers to get rid of the "May the Lord, bring you peace" or whatever. And then Britney went back and deleted hers. So there's shade. There's very serious
I love
shade.
it. People try to kill hope because hope is one of the most valuable and fragile things there is. I'm going to go read a mother effing fairy tale now. Psst, if you don't want to see my precious ass dancing in my living room, or it's not up to your standards, go read a fucking book.
I'm telling you, she is done. She's done playing around. And I love to see it because for the longest time, people were like, is Britney actually in control of her social media? Like, is it somebody else who has the account that's posting? Like, is it really her that we're hearing from? And now the things that she's posting, I'm starting to believe it. Like, I'm starting to actually be like, okay, I get it. I think this is her. And so she posted a video last week of her riding a horse and doing cartwheels. She goes, "Coming along, folks, coming along," with a middle finger emoji. "New with real representation today. I feel gratitude and blessed. Thank you to my fans who are supporting me. You have no idea what it means to me to be supported by such awesome fans. God bless you all. P.S. This is me celebrating by horseback riding and doing cartwheels today. #Free Britney." It's the first time she used the Free Britney hashtag, and she used it in her post. So, and then her boyfriend, Sam, comments and goes, "The internet is about to explode. #Free Britney." So it's just, I have the chills reading that. Like, I love to see her actually coming out of her shell that she's clearly been living in for years and feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel, because I cannot imagine the abuse that she has had to endure for the last decade plus.
Yeah.
When she breaks it down the way that she has in that statement, the trauma, like the girlfriend probably, she even said in her statement, she's like, "I probably still need some therapy." I don't blame her. If I went through something like that, I would need all of the therapy. So she deserves that. She deserves her life and her freedom and access to her money and being able to get married and have a zillion babies and do whatever the hell she wants, because she's had no say and no free will over her life for that long now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the good news is she does have her own legal counsel now. That's a step in the right direction. And I guess her lawyer made a statement the other day that said he is going to move very fast to get her
moving
out of
aggressively to help her out of this conservatorship. Who is her lawyer?
Do we know?
Let's see. Matthew Rosengart.
Do we know anything about him?
Mm-mm. "My firm and I are moving aggressively and expeditiously to file a petition to remove Jamie Spears unless he resigns first," Matthew Rosengart said Monday afternoon outside LA's Stanley Moss Courthouse. Note that the slight difference between what he said and what Spears has asked for in recent weeks: the dissolution of her conservatorship entirely without a review of her mental health. Mm-hmm. Spears says she's afraid of her father, who's been paid to handle her money since 2008 up until 2019. He was also in charge of her personal decisions.
Mm-hmm. In charge of everything. And so I'm just reading this Variety article that talks about basically what's next. And she literally at her latest hearing showed up to the judge and said, "I'm here to get rid of my dad and charge him with conservatorship abuse."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's devastating to read through and witness a lot of this, but at the same time, I feel like it shouldn't, but it takes major cases like this for actual change to come about, because Britney Spears is not the only victim of conservatorship abuse.
Right.
There's no way. And so the fact that there is movement in Congress, that's another thing we haven't talked about, is how there's like bipartisan support for a Free Britney bill. Like, they literally call it the Free Britney bill. For conservatorship. I don't know if it's the details of it, if it's to like get rid of him entirely or like reform or whatever, but like I think it shines a spotlight into those who have been put under conservatorships and are taken advantage of in ways that they are unable to escape. Like, if it really is that difficult, which clearly it is, to get out from under a conservatorship, it really makes you wonder how many people are in the same boat as she is.
You know what's crazy?
What?
So before she got to change her lawyer, she was paying. Wait, hold on. Is this her conservator? So I think her dad still has her financial conservatorship, but she is.
No, he's got both. I'm pretty sure he's still got both.
It says. Hold on. It says here.
So what Britney was originally pushing for was to get a bank.
Up until 2019, he was also in charge of his daughter's personal decisions. So according to this article in 2019, he no longer was her personal conservatorship, but he's still her financial conservatorship. And this lady, Montgomery,
sounds familiar,
I think is her person conservator, who she pays $50,000 a month.
Yeah, I did hear about that.
Spears estate
that was her lawyer. No,
Spears estate has been paying for Montgomery's $50,000 a month security detail on a conditional basis. Jamie Spears' team was arguing that the estate could not afford to pay security costs for every person involved in the conservatorship who fielded threats. Yeah, Jody Montgomery is Britney Spears' conservator of the person.
Yeah, okay. So what Britney was originally trying to do was to get her dad out of the picture entirely, and get this bank, Bessemer Trust, to be the new
financial
conservator of her finances, right?
Yeah.
And so Brenda Penny, the judge who was leading the case,
denied her.
Well, she denied it, but she allowed the bank to be the co-conservator, right? So that was what ended up getting approved. Now, all of this came out, right?
With the bank resigned,
Britney
right?
Clearly is not. And then Bessemer Trust pulled out.
Yeah.
They were like, we're not comfortable with it. Britney doesn't want this. We're not going to be involved in this. And it's like, man, what a day. What a day when a bank has more morals than your own father. Like,
so this woman that has her person conservatorship denies her basic things like coffee, hair vitamins, and her own driver's license. And at the same time, because she's in fear of her life, this Jody Montgomery person got a $50,000 a month security detail to protect her own person. Like that, what is that? How does that even exist? It doesn't compute. It doesn't compute for me. Why would anyone be giving Jody Montgomery death threats if what she was doing for Britney Spears was moral? You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Well, because that's the whole messaging that's being spread, right? Because people are so upset over the way that Britney's been treated that they're going after everyone. Even when so the Bessemer Trust situation, right? When that got approved by Brenda Penny, it was after Britney's testimony in court.
Right.
And she also denied the actual removal of the conservatorship. And Steph, people lost their minds. Like, I was looking through Twitter and people were like doxing this judge. They were like posting her pictures, posting like death threats to her. I mean, the internet's a scary place sometimes, right? And so that just doesn't surprise me at all. People there are diehard fans of Britney Spears who will go to the ends of the earth to see her free. And even if that means posting death threats to the freaking judge who's on her trial, like, it's insane. So I can't, like, the security detail that she's asking for, I can't say it surprises me if she's gotten, especially because she's the one who's the conservator, right? She's the one who's doing a lot of this to Britney. I can understand.
Sure, I can understand
that
her
doesn't surprise me at all,
wanting security detail. That's not the point. That shocks me. It's the fact that Britney has to pay for it.
That's, I think, the most wild part of this entire situation is that Britney is banking this entire conservatorship. Every last penny comes from her pocket. All of it. And it makes me wonder if she does have the ability to sue her dad for conservatorship abuse, if she'll get any of that back.
I don't know.
$50,000, like,
That's
I
a
just, I
brand
don't
new
know.
car once a month.
Every month. Not even just a brand new car, a nice car.
Yeah.
Like, that's a nice brand new car every month. And it's just disgusting that it's being, I guess, manipulated into a narrative that they're trying to help her. And the fact that we all bought it, dude. We bought it for years. We thought that Britney was doing good, that she was healthy, that she was getting back on track. She was working. She had her life back. Like, everybody just assumed that everything was okay. And we believed it. We didn't know any better. And I hope that the people who started the Free Britney movement feel extremely validated because they were right.
I think step one that needs to happen, again, like you said, conservatorships are really hard to dissolve. So I think step one is just to get her father off of it and allow her to choose her own unbiased, like conservators.
Yeah, which she's conservator. Yeah. Well, she wants to get rid of it entirely.
Well, I know, but like and her lawyer is very purposely not using that rhetoric. So I think the first step is to get Jamie Spears off of the conservatorship, change the boundaries of it, and then I'm assuming in a few years when it's shit's not so crazy to then petition to dissolve it.
You think it'll take that long?
Yeah.
I think with all the hype that's around it, I think she's going to get out of it a lot sooner than that. I don't think it's going to take years.
I don't think she's going to get out of it entirely. I think it's going to be different. I think the stipulations for it will change, but if
really with all this uproar, you don't think they'll get out of it?
I think if the plan was for her to dissolve it immediately, her lawyer would be using that terminology.
Well, then we go back to this bill that's in Congress right now. Britney Spears conservatorship case prompts bipartisan Free Britney bill. 2 members of the House of Representatives proposed a bill that aims to protect Britney Spears and other individuals under legal guardianships and conservatorships. They introduced the bipartisan Free Britney Act on Tuesday. If passed, the act would give individuals under a legal conservatorship or guardianship the right to ask for their court-appointed private guardian to be replaced with a public guardian who is, quote, free from financial conflicts of interest. So this isn't, I mean, it's reform, right?
Yes. But I don't necessarily think it'll give her the direct ammunition to dissolve her conservatorship. Which, again, like, has anyone in chat watched the Netflix movie that came out, I think this last year, called I Care a Lot?
No, but I heard it's crazy.
Oh my God. Rosamund Pike's in it and Peter Dinklage, and it is a bonkers. It's the same.
Is it?
It's the same, like, concept, but malicious. So there is a woman who is a con artist, and she goes around to these doctors that are like in pocket, and they find these targets that are old people who have no remaining next of kin and who have like a decent estate value, right? And she goes and works with a doctor, and the doctor presents a medical recommendation that says, oh, this person is showing signs of dementia, and I no longer think they are capable of taking care of themselves. And she goes into the court and she goes, Judge, I just really care about these people, and I want to make sure that they're taken care of. And if they can no longer take care of themselves and there's no one else in this world that cares, like, I want to make sure they don't get like taken advantage of. And the whole con is she then ships them off to this nursing home that she has also in her pocket, and she dissolves their estate completely and takes everything. And then so then the plot is she crosses the wrong person, and that's the whole back and forth thriller of the game. But like, and they can't do anything. And I don't know how, again, movie Hollywood, so maybe not super realistic, but the concept's the same, right? That the court has the ability to take away your freedoms and give them to someone else to control entirely. No ifs, ands, or buts. As soon as she gets legal guardianship of these old people, she puts them away, and they do not have a say. They cannot legally do anything. And if they run away or if they do whatever, the police will literally pick them up, and she goes, put them back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Isn't that scary to know?
So
And that, I think, to
scary.
a certain degree, is true of the control that you can have over people through the law. Like that's just real. Like conservatorship is the perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Right? Because Rick said that he was like, because I mentioned the IUD thing, and I was like, she has an IUD and she wants to get it out, and he's like, well, why doesn't she just go to the doctor and get it out? And I was like, Rick, she can't. Like literally, it will be like if a 12-year-old goes to the doctor and says, I want to do this with my body, the doctor will say, I need your parents' consent to do this. It's the exact same thing.
Yep.
It will be, I need your guardian's consent to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if she finds a back alley doctor who will do it, then that person could go to prison.
Yep.
Like, it's not as easy as just like, ding dong, hi, like, knock knock, I'm here to get my IUD out.
Ding dong, hi.
Like, it's not.
Yeah.
And so when you put it in that perspective and you're like, okay, I think it does kind of not narrow the scope, but it just makes it a bit more, okay, that like this is the extent of what she's enduring.
Absolutely.
So you don't think she's going to get out of it for a while?
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
I think
Because I feel like when with situations like this, the only real way that you see change is during the peak of it.
But again, don't misconstrue what I'm saying. I think things will change dramatically for her, but I don't think the conservatorship will be dissolved right away. So, for instance, she'll get, an unbiased person, whatever, and there'll be so much scrutiny because of how big this is becoming.
Yeah.
But stuff like getting her IUD out, being able to get her boyfriend's car, like all of that stuff will stop happening. So you'll have someone approving her finances and making sure she doesn't, quote unquote, do anything crazy. Like, but I think for the most part, she'll be left alone to like live her life. Like you said, like she says, more manageable therapy sessions where it's like once a week she checks in and has her conversation, not 8 times for 4 hours a day. You know what I mean? Like stuff like that, like the actual abusive part of it, I think will no longer be happening. But yeah.
I'm reading through this article about what Rosengart is doing, like what his moves are. And so I wonder, do we know when the next court date is?
Monday.
Have they said?
So Monday, I think. The 26th.
Really? It's that soon? Yeah, the next hearing in the case is scheduled for Monday.
Mm-hmm.
What's today? Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like we might have a potential update
next
week.
True.
Well, and that's the thing about it sucks because the courts, U.S. courts at least, are notorious for moving slow. Like, there's no surefire way to like boom, boom, 1, 2, 3, we're done. And so there's a court date Monday. But like, what are we expecting? What are we anticipating happening, right? Do they have a schedule of what they're hoping to accomplish? Because it's not just going to take a week of having a new attorney and suddenly Britney's dad is gone. I don't see that happening.
No. It's going to be a long ass thing. What'll happen on Monday is they'll probably like present to the judge their suit, right? And then it's the whole litigation.
Back and forth.
Yep.
Has her dad made any kind of comment regarding any of this except for I love my daughter?
I don't know. I am not aware.
So Yahoo Entertainment a day ago, Britney Spears isn't done speaking out against conservatorship. I'm not even close. I'll never be able to let go and fully move on until I've said all I had to say.
I mean,
same.
I would feel the same way.
I know there was talks after Meghan and Harry did their interview with Oprah that everybody wanted Britney to do an interview with Oprah, and Britney actually made a comment. She said that if she were going to do it with anybody, it would be Oprah.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see, like, she's said a lot, and I feel like there's a limit to what she's actually able to like come out and say without any repercussion because her dad is still her conservator. But like, then the other question is like, what is this Jodie Montgomery's role in this situation? Like, do we think that her dad is just paying this woman under the table to basically do what he says?
Not under the table, above board.
Is her dad? So yeah, because he's in charge of the finances, so he pays her. her salary. And what did we say her salary was? 50
I don't no 50
That's
was
what
how
she wanted
much
in security.
Yeah. How
Do
much
we know her?
does Jodie Montgomery make? Britney Spears care manager. Blah blah blah.
I'm surprised she hasn't thrown a fit about getting this woman removed too. I'm sure it would just be a symptom of the cause, right? Whoever else would be replaced.
According to Yahoo, Montgomery charged Britney Spears $221,000 for her services that took place between November 2019 and February 2021. Additionally, Montgomery spent $65,000 in legal fees and $1,200 in additional costs that came out of Spears' pocket. This means that Spears has so far paid $287,000 due to Montgomery's assistance. On top of the extra $50,000 a month.
What?
Now.
On top of that?
Yahoo notes her court appointed her.
Well, wait. Did the security actually get approved for $50,000 a month?
I don't know. Yahoo notes her court appointed attorney cost her an additional $521,000 for his services between 2019 and 2001, and Jamie collected a salary of about $16,000 per month from the conservatorship. Wow.
So it looks like the 39-year-old's personal conservator, Jodie, and her attorney are requesting $50,000 be granted to her to provide ample security following the increased attention and criticism. However, a source close to the case told The Sun that today's hearing has been pushed back to next week. No decision has been made regarding Jodie's security. It basically comes down to money. So they're in dispute over all of that. They continued that Britney's lawyer wants Jodie to be granted the security if that's what Britney wants, but he's focused on the bigger picture. Matthew has no doubt that he's going to get Britney out of this conservatorship, and when that happens, he wants to represent her. Ooh, that I like that confidence. I like that a lot. Someone in chat actually said a little bit about this guy. A former federal prosecutor, previously serving as supervisory assistant United States attorney and Justice Department trial attorney, where he investigated and prosecuted cases ranging from violent crimes to public corruption, including cases of national and international significance. This guy's a big deal.
Yeah. So we have 3 minutes, and I have to get off right at noon.
Yeah, because you have a big,
big gosh,
second half of your day, don't you?
I'm so nervous.
Do we want to tell everybody who doesn't already know?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So I'm doing a roundtable discussion with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Murthy on twitch.tv/Twitch at 2 p.m. Pacific today to talk about COVID-19 vaccines.
And on her channel, twitch.tv/FemStuff.
Yes. But it'll only be me on my channel, so if you want to watch like the production of the show, I would definitely watch it on twitch.tv/Twitch.
So if you guys are new here, first of all, thank you so much for tuning in. Please drop a follow to myself and to Steph. Or you guys have my channel. We're in a squad stream as well. You can click over to hers. But that's a big deal, and I'm so excited to squeal.
I'm terrified. I'm terrified. I am. It's not really an interview. I'm leading a roundtable discussion with 2 White House advisors, advisors. It's the Surgeon General of the United States of America and the lead medical advisor to the president.
It's no big deal, right? just like whatever.
Just me casually having a heart attack over here.
So this is really, really exciting. So that's happening at 2 p.m., which is in 2 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph is going to end on her side to go get ready and do tech check and all that. So make sure to go show her some love and watch. And yeah, if you guys are new, thank you for chilling. I'm going to stay on for a little bit and hang out for a little before I have to go get my daughter from school.
Tyler goes, good news is you'll be having a heart attack in a call with 2 medical professionals.
I was going to say, with 2 medical professionals.
Sir, I can't breathe.
Hope they can teach Brennan over Discord resuscitation.
Right.
But yeah, thank you guys. This has been so much fun.
We do our podcast typically Thursdays at 11 a.m. Pacific. Mm-hmm. We talk about things that are going on in our life, and usually a current event topic or a book that we're reading or any of the top of mind things that go on in our lives. We just have a very chill discussion. So if you enjoyed the format, we would love for you guys to tune in again. I do post the podcast on my YouTube, youtube.com/femsteph. If you guys want to watch previous episodes or if you can't catch them live, if you want to watch episodes later. But yeah.
There's a little secret. Those of you guys who tune in during these podcasts are our favorite.
True.
We love you guys especially.
You guys are the best.
All right, Boo. Good luck.
Thank you.
Love you.
I love you too.
Okay, bye.
Bye.